Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it's not too bad. We got to talk to, offensive line is always my favorite position group to talk to. I think defensive line might be my second favorite position group to talk to. And we got to talk to them today. So that was always, as always, entertaining, interesting, lots to talk about.
There is a lot to talk about because there's a lot of defensive linemen on this team, and a lot of them that we expect to be pretty good this year. And we talked to a handful of those guys. Let's run down who all we talked to. We talked to Larry Johnson, Zach Harrison, Tyreke Smith, Javante Jean-Baptiste. Noah Potter was here. I did not get a chance to talk to him. You did not get a chance to talk to him. Defensive tackle Antoine Jackson, also we did not talk to. Haskell Garrett, I talked to. Taron Vincent, I talked to. Anybody else we're missing?
That's it. I think you got all of them.
Jerry Emig, the sports information director, said he would have brought the freshmen out, but nobody seemed to want to talk to them.
Sometimes, and we love Jerry to death. I'm not sure Jerry's telling that story exactly as I personally experienced it, because I seem to remember the names Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau might have been the first two out of people's mouths when he asked who we wanted to talk to, but this is how things go sometimes.
Maybe we weren't clear. So next time we will be more. When maybe he heard JB instead of JTT.
Could be.
They're very similar, three letters.
Yeah, could be. But when you ask us which running backs we want to talk to, I will make sure to mention Jack Sawyer.
There you go. Yes. Also, maybe JT Tuimoloau.
Maybe.
We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But still, all in all, a full, fun day of talking to a bunch of defensive linemen. I think the top story that comes out of this is something that we've been wondering about, and that is, will Haskell Garrett and Taron Vincent play side by side? And it sure seems like that's the way they're going to go. They're cross-training everybody at nose tackle and three tech. But for me, it's like they're doing it so that they can get these two guys on the field together. So I am expecting now, maybe that is your starting duo.
That is certainly something that they're going to, for sure, give a try. And, how, is that 25% of the reps? Is that 50% of the reps? Is that 90% of the reps? We'll kind of find that out. I think they like what they have with Antoine Jackson. One person who, they don't want us reading between the lines on things, but we didn't get to talk to Tyler Friday. We know he's out. The only other veteran defensive lineman who we didn't get to talk to today was Jerron Cage, who we have not seen practicing. Kind of makes you wonder whether there might be, this is not a couple day of a ding. This might be a longer term thing with him. If he's not there, then that maybe opens up, do they need someone else to fill in some more reps on the nose? That's where you maybe move one of those guys over.
And let's talk about those two guys. Ty Hamilton also repping back and forth at nose tackle and three tech. But when you consider these two guys together, two talented penetrators, three techs, and Larry Johnson likes them because they can rush the passer. But together now, like Taron Vincent and Haskell Garrett both said, it's there's not a lot of difference. There's just more space when you're playing three tech, but you just use the same mentality when you're trying to get to the ball, trying to get to the quarterback. I remember years ago, and I've said this here before, like Larry Johnson would teach his defensive linemen, stop the passer, and then if the ball is handed off, get that guy along the way. And so those two guys embody that, and I'm thinking it's going to get back to Taron Vincent. No, Haskell Garrett said he has been talking to like Devon Hamilton and Robert Landers about playing nose tackle, and those two guys were good at getting into the backfield. Haskell Garrett is good at getting into the backfield. We believe Taron Vincent because he's shown flashes and he's quick. So like those two together, it's one of those things those are the two guys you put together on a video game. When you're setting out your NCAA football lineup, you put those two together, and now Larry Johnson has finally gotten into gaming.
It's kind of interesting because you've got the offensive line where we're looking at Ohio State potentially having 4 tackles on their offensive line, and it's like, the dream video game offensive line where it's just like, yes, all tackles. And, I guess there's some question about, will they be able to hold up on bull rushes from nose tackles and that kind of stuff. And then, we'll all find out together in like 2 weeks. So there's that. And then on the other side of the ball, they're kind of doing the same thing where it's like, it's almost like a modified rushman package where it's not all defensive ends, but it's like, okay, you're trading a little bit of size for a little bit of quickness. How well will that work against a Wisconsin offensive line? There's something of a question. Wisconsin's not on the schedule this year. they do tend to run into each other in Indianapolis in early December. So that'd be interesting to see if maybe if the strategy changes a little bit if that happens. But it's interesting because that quickness, that burst. I mean, that's what made Devon Hamilton so good. He had that monster season. You don't expect stats out of the nose tackle position. And Devon Hamilton had, 6 sacks, 6.5 sacks, something like that a couple of years ago. It was that burst. It was just, he was in there so quickly. If you can replicate that with Haskell Garrett, and he can hold up against the run, then that really probably tells you that's probably going to be a pretty good thing. I do wonder, does this reflect that stopping the run has always been like job one? Like the old Ford motto, quality is job one. Stopping the run has always been job one for the Ohio State defense. The game is sort of shifting to more of a passing-oriented game. Maybe the run isn't such a big deal. Does this reflect to you maybe a little bit of an acknowledgement of maybe stopping the pass has to kind of be as much or more of a priority as stopping the run? Or is this just personnel?
I think maybe a little bit of that. I think coaches would never admit that. No, this is football. You have to stop the run. Well, I don't even know what a quarterback is. If we have to stop the run against teams that rush for 94 yards in a game, it's like, well, no, first off, we have to make them one-dimensional. It's like, well, they're kind of like that on their own because they can't run the ball. But, yeah, I think there is certainly a need for more pass rushing from this group who was effective at getting pressures, but not effective at getting to the quarterback. Now, this increases that, and so there is some of that where I'm sure they believe they're going to be able to stop the run, especially with the teams they're facing. I think it helps having 2 seniors in that position. I don't know that they would throw out, a younger guy there and just rely on him. And so I think you can do that with 2 seniors who can both hold up against the run. I don't think we have any concerns about them holding up against the run and playing together. So I think there's quite a few factors, and this seems like the perfect storm, really good timing. And I do believe they will face Wisconsin in December, but by then, not only will they have a really good gauge on everything, but whoever that 3-tech is, and they'll both be 3-tech, they'll both be nose tackle, they'll be much more geared up and much more accustomed to stopping the run.
Well, and you mentioned the importance of those guys both being veterans. Larry Johnson said, you got to remember, 3-tech and nose, I think people just look at them and they're like, yeah, those are the big fat guys in the middle of the defensive line, and they just got to get a good push. It's like, well, no, there are different responsibilities in every play. And they make sure to cross-train guys where they know the play. It's not, I know what I have to do on this play. It's, they know the play. So the fact that you've got Taron, Vincent, you've got Haskell Garrett, who've been around for so long, they know the responsibilities on every, no matter what the call is, they know it. From a 3-tech, I have to do this. If I'm at nose, I have to do this. That's another real advantage to having guys who are veterans because, Tyreke Williams and Mike Hall, who are just coming in now, those are guys who, they're not quite where Quinn Ewers was on Tuesday, where it's like they're just trying to figure out where to stretch. It's more of, they know that, but they're probably still sort of figuring out that, they probably are not scoring 100% on every quiz that they're given on their assignments in any given defense. So, that's another advantage to having those 2 veteran guys inside.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what that looks like because it could be really, really good. Haskell Garrett coming off of an All-American season. I would not be surprised at all if Taron Vincent does very much the same thing this year for the Buckeyes. The depth behind them, Antoine Jackson, we know. I wonder that this back and forth playing both spots, starting to continue the positionless aspect of a defense that we've been talking about, hinting towards that things are moving that way. Linebackers repping at both positions. You've got a bullet that can play safety and can play linebacker. And you have more movable parts, more versatile players than maybe ever before. And it's only going to get more versatile because right now they're just putting guys they have in places and asking them to be versatile. But this is a group with a bunch of different body types that, and speaking of the defensive tackles, where they can do different things, but they can penetrate. They can get into the backfield, and that's what Larry Johnson wants. And when those guys are getting into the backfield, that's going to force the quarterbacks out, the running backs out into who's waiting arms?
I'm going to say Jack Sawyer and Tuimoloau and Tyreke Smith and Have I not given the right answer yet?
Also, those are some right answers.
Yes, yeah.
But any of those defensive ends in the game at that point, these guys are going to work, I think, really well together, which will make the secondary much better. But we can get to the secondary on another day. But yeah, it seems like these pieces are going to work pretty well together in August.
In August, yeah. I mean, this is the optimistic time of year. Everyone is feeling good. Everyone's undefeated right now. We'll see. We'll see. No battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. We'll see how this all looks a week from now when you get the week 0 games and then all that. But you think about the 3-tech guys also maybe doubling at nose, and does that make the 3-tech a little thinner? Well, they have guys like Noah Potter who are defensive ends who are also kind of splitting time at 3-tech to try. So it's like they kind of have, it's like this modular storage system. Like you go to the Container Store and it's like you can get whatever you want, and you can get I need to store all of my breakfast cereals, and I need to have all of my all my pastas and that kind of stuff. Like you customize your thing
like
for whatever you have. Right? Yeah, you customize your thing for whatever you have. Whatever your situation is. That's kind of where Ohio State is right now. It's like you can go with the heavier, bigger, older defensive line, or you can go with the quicker defensive line, or you can go with the Larry Johnson said they weren't quite ready to talk about the rushman package yet. He's like, we got to worry about Minnesota. Minnesota's gonna be running the ball. We got to worry about that first. But,
that's true.
It didn't sound like the rushman package was something that they were ready to talk about yet, because that's not something they think they're going to use a lot against Minnesota. But if the rushman package, we've heard all sorts of different combinations, including some of those freshmen. If it's four defensive ends there, that's a very different defensive line than if you're going with a heavier defense, a heavier group. And you can be situational with that from week to week. You can be situational from that different down and distance situations, because they rotate the defensive line so much. You can go from, it's 3rd and 1, you run your heavy package out. 3rd and 10, you run your rushman package out. These guys are all, no one's playing out of position. That gives that offensive line 2 very, very different looks. And odds are, an offensive line is not going to be great at blocking both of those. Like, one of those is going to present a mismatch where, the team with the really tall receivers presents your small corners with a problem. The team with the really fast wide receivers presents your corners who are big but not quite as fast with a problem. Like, you're going to be able to present a team with a problem. You're not necessarily going to be able to beat them in every way, but it's going to be a pain in the butt one way or the other.
Yeah, I will go back to the offense where Ryan Day said you have to hang your hat on something. The defense does as well, and right now it seems like that's their focus right now is Minnesota and doing what they need to beat Minnesota, and then you branch out from there. And there will be many different things that they can do and will do. I think we'll see some wrinkles against Minnesota here and there, because you don't employ like a Craig Young and not do something with him and do some special things there. In terms of snaps for the nose tackle, like that's almost like not quite like a third running back, but like the nose tackle comes out on passing down. So it makes your defensive line deeper when you do sub package, and when you go with the rushmen, which they will eventually do, and we've seen Tyreke Smith and Zach Harrison do that, go inside. I don't know that I would put Jack Sawyer or JT Tuimoloau inside just yet. Let them do what they do and just rush the passer outside. I still think we'll see them against Minnesota. Maybe not in a rushman, but I just have a feeling, Tom. I think those two are going to play, especially when they're accustomed to a 4 or 5 man rotation at defensive end. Now they're down to 3 veterans. You're going to have to, get some more guys in the mix.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Zach Harrison, you've got Tyreke Smith, you've got Javonte Jean-Baptiste. They feel good about all 3 of those guys. And then it's like, well, you've got like Darian Henry Young, you've got Cormonte Hamilton. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, you've got some choices there, but it's not guys who've really done it before. You've got the 2 true freshmen who obviously have not done it before, but they are very high on them. Everyone you talk to about the 2 true freshmen, it's like, and everyone got asked about them, and everyone said these guys are really coming along. Larry Johnson talked a little bit about Jack Sawyer and the fact that he hasn't played football for like 18 months. He goes, like, spring doesn't count. Spring's not football. Spring's just drills. But there's some hurdles to overcome there. Sawyer not having played for 18 months, Tuimoloau coming in so late. But it's like you can tell like when the stuff starts clicking, and he's starting to see that stuff clicking a little bit. When that stuff starts clicking, those are guys who are absolutely going to have an opportunity to play this year.
Yeah, a lot of guys to look forward to on this line. I want to get back to Taron Vincent because this dude is the happiest guy I've ever met, and he's spent much of his career at Ohio State injured, and we've discussed that in the past, where his dad would tell him, NFL great Troy Vincent, cornerback, would tell him injuries are part of the game. You just have to accept it and then get better. And so that has really helped his attitude in dealing with these injuries, but also like his attitude is really, really great. He's just a really happy guy. He said, any day you wake up, you're blessed. And today he was out there, like he has spent so much of his time injured. Now he is full go, fall camp, playing well, feeling good. He's finally getting the full college football experience that he wanted, that he thought he was going to get. And he said, man, I'm showing now everybody why I was the number one defensive tackle in the nation. And to come into this situation where he's healthy, he's happy, he's ready to be that free tech that he always knew he could be, and then to also be like, yeah, I'll play some nose, I don't care. Just put me on the field.
Yeah, and that's it. It's just like, put me in, coach, I'm ready to play. I don't think he's going to get to play center field, but he will get to play either of those interior spots.
I asked him if he could play defensive end. He said, I'll play anywhere.
Yeah. Like at that point, like, whatever, man. I don't care. You want to go play tight end? Like, sure, whatever. Because you got to remember, he came in as a freshman, 5-star. You come in as a 5-star, number one defensive tackle in the country. I'm sure your mindset is, I'm going to play early. I'm going to play often in 3 years. Boom, off to the NFL. Well, he came in, played early, had a sack in the 2018 Big Ten championship game, and then he's just been hurt. And it's like, he was able to play a little bit towards the end of last season, and was sort of ramping up. But he had a shoulder injury. Shoulder injuries are not great. That can take a while to recover from, because that cost him all of 2019, and he was not healthy. He was not 100% at the beginning of last season. If he's finally healthy, I mean, think back to how long ago 2018 was. I mean, Urban Meyer was the head coach. It wasn't the last time they played Northwestern in the Big Ten championship game. It was 2 times ago. I mean, that has been a minute. And for someone who probably came in thinking, spring 2021, I'm going to be standing on stage with Roger Goodell, hearing my name called, and off to the NFL, to just finally be able to be back on the field is like, I mean, there are a couple of guys on this Ohio State team that have just had injury-plagued seasons. Tyreke Smith is another one where it's like, when he's been on the field, he's been really good. It's just, can he stay on the field? Tyler Friday is kind of the flip side of that, where he's also had that. Now he's hurt. Cameron Babb is kind of like that. So when you get those guys on the field, like last year, think about how excited Cameron Babb was to play. Like, it was like, hallelujah, he can finally play, finally contribute. He's on the field in the national championship game covering punts. Like, that's awesome. Good for him. That's kind of where Taron Vincent is right now. Like, finally.
And so I asked Javante Jean-Baptiste about Taron Vincent's attitude, and like, what does he give you guys? And he's like, I love it. He's so like upbeat. He makes us mean. And it's like, but if he's the happiest guy in town, why does that make you meaner? And he said, because he's constantly challenging the guys on the defensive line to like be more aggressive, be stronger, and so they feed off of him. And it's just weird that you've got this happy-go-lucky guy creating, helping to create a menacing atmosphere. I don't know if it's kind of like what clowns do, like certain like scary clowns where they have this air about them. And maybe, I'm not saying Taron Vincent is a scary clown, I'm saying maybe the byproduct is there.
It's like how Mr. Rogers was a Navy SEAL before he got his TV show.
True.
I'm not sure. I don't fact check that. That may not be accurate. Bob Ross, though. Bob Ross.
Really?
Maybe not. No, it is interesting, and it's because that's a group that's like a really nice group, and it was like offensive linemen too. You talk to Harry Miller, you talk to Thayer Munford, you talk to Nick Petit-Frere, you talk to Harris Johnson, you talk to Zach Harrison, I mean, like, all of these guys, they're just the nicest people. They're thoughtful, they're a little bit introspective, they're really just smart, nice, intelligent people. And it's like, what do you do? It's like, well, I go out and just knock people's heads together like coconuts. Like, that's what I do, when I'm on the football field. I mean, go back to, some of the really, like, the nicest guys during interviews, just like, they're able to flip that switch. And, you have the guys who are just the crazy mean people. And I'm just thinking back to, like, those old, like, John Madden Raiders teams, where it's just like, oh, all these people are literally clinically insane. Okay, cool. Ohio State has just found a way to get these guys who are like intelligent, introspective, quiet, sometimes soft-spoken people, who then can just like flip that switch and go out there and just turn into like crazy monsters on the field. Wyatt Davis was another one last year.
Yeah.
Wyatt Davis was one of the
Smiling,
baddest mothers and you can remember on the field, and just the nicest, smiliest. Like it's very strange, but that's just kind of like I will confess that I do not completely understand it, but I have come to accept that this is just kind of the nature of things within the Ohio State offensive and defensive line.
They're smiling when they tell you, "I am violence," and it's nice to meet you.
Smilent?
I am Smilance. As a point to that, there was some story about Zach Harrison not having some of his dad's chili and not giving any to Javonte Jean-Baptiste. And so they are having their interviews at the same time, about 20 feet apart. And when somebody mentioned to Javonte about Zach's dad's chili and how, did you know that there's chili? And Javonte yelled over at Zach, like, "Hey, man, why did you tell me about the chili?" And then Zach Harrison's like, "Yeah, but I gave you some red velvet cake." and that's just some interaction. But Zach did say he'll get him some chili. So there's not, I would say there is some turmoil on the defensive line, but I think it will be rectified, as most turmoil is, with chili.
Oh,
and cake.
Yeah.
Chili cake.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'd mix those two.
Skyline does probably.
Let's not besmirch this podcast with. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Kentucky. It's interesting that that came up in the context of Zach Harrison explaining, how did you gain, like Zach Harrison came in thin and has gained all this weight. Javonte Jean-Baptiste came in thin, has gained all this weight. Jack Sawyer came in at 220 pounds. He's at 250 now. He's gained 30 pounds. Which, who among us did not gain 30 pounds our first semester of college? But his is actually good weight. And Zach Harrison talked about gaining weight. He keeps gaining weight, but he keeps getting faster. And it's like, how do you do that? Because you don't need to tell a room full of sports writers how to gain weight. It's like it's the getting faster parts that confuses all of us.
You said faster.
Faster, yes. And he said, it's just you got to eat. You just got to eat. You got to eat. You got to eat. And it's just like, well, what are you eating? Are you eating a lot of? He's like, oh, anything, man. Like, I like pizza. I like buffalo chicken wraps. I'm like, same. Zach Harrison and me, literally the same person. And that's when his dad's chili came up. And it's just like you're just constantly eating. And then he says, sometimes Coach Mick will look at him and goes, you got to cut it back a little bit. You're kind of getting a little bit of the bad weight in there. But that's what's crazy to me is Jack Sawyer coming in here and putting on 30 pounds. That was Larry Johnson's at 30 pounds of good weight in the last 8-9 months. That's crazy. And, that gives you some indication how hard they're working during this. You hear all the time there is no off season, on the grind, all that stuff, and it's kind of easy to kind of go, yeah. Like, you are not gaining 30 pounds of good weight without really treating it like there is no off season. So, that's a lot of these guys talk about the fact that, during practice, going up against this offensive line, like, the game is the easiest part of their week. The game is the easiest part of their whole year in a lot of cases. It's like, that's the fun part, because you're putting in all the thankless work to get to that point.
Javonte Jean-Baptiste was talking about some of that thankless work, because he came in at like 205, 215. He's up to 255 now. And so, he says, I'll eat Cane's at night. I'll eat Chipotle during the day. I'll do this, like, just total thankless work. But also his talks with Mick, Coach Mickey Marotti, Mick would tell him, like, just eat. You're not going to get fat. You're not going to get fat. Just eat. And because the workouts are so strenuous and they burn all of the calories and the weight, like, all of the fat gets burned off. And so it doesn't matter how much he eats. I remember seeing him when he came in, he looked more like Benjamin Victor than a defensive end, because he was very thin. And now he looks like he can play football, and he has the last couple of years. And the interesting thing about a lot of what Javonte Jean-Baptiste said is, like, Mick did as much for him mentally as physically, in terms of just getting him to understand and believe that this process is working, because he knows he was recruited to play tight or defensive end. He knew he was coming here to be a defensive end, but he didn't believe they were going to be able to do it. And this is a guy, I think he was like 195 on his official visit, something like that. And so he didn't believe it until after his freshman year, going into his sophomore year, when he could see the changes, that he finally was like, there must be something to this. And I don't think that's unusual for it to take a while for not only things to click, but mentally for the player to be like, okay, these guys are pros. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, and I remember talking to him in the locker room, and I don't remember whether it was after one of the Big Ten championship games. Was he a freshman in 18? 18. So, yeah, it would have been either the locker room after that Northwestern Big Ten championship game or the locker room after the Rose Bowl that year against Washington. I remember talking to him because you always, at the end of the season, you're trying to sort of stockpile interviews to get you through the fallow period before spring football starts. So you always talk to the younger guys, and so you and I had said, okay, you'll take the offense, I'll take the defense, and I remember talking to Javante Jean-Baptiste about it, and just like he looked like, well, if they bulk this kid up, he might be able to play linebacker someday, and it's like, he's 202, he came in at 209, something like that. He probably weighed 220 at that point. It was like, okay, that's like maybe like an outside, like bullet size now, and it's like, okay, how on earth is this kid going to get there? And he's talking about eating 10,000 calories of the food, and it's like literally all you do is eat. And I think at one point he said it's not. It sounds like it's so much fun. It's like it's actually not that fun. You're just constantly. You wake up in the middle of the night, you drink a protein shake, and then you go back to bed, and you eat 6 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches before bed. And just crazy eating to try and get that weight on. That is a long way from that point to where he is now. And I mean, Zach Harrison talked about him and said, like, some guys come in and they're just right on the, right on the field, and I think the Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau kind of path. And they're, they come in, they're immediate contributors. He has had a journey. Javante Jean-Baptiste has had a journey to get to this point. Another guy who's had a journey is Tyreke Smith. He talked about, we talked earlier about his injuries and that kind of stuff. He was kind of like thinking about, maybe you go pro after last season. And then right before the national championship game, he gets COVID. And he's like, are you kidding me? Like, you go through that whole year, all the, getting a Q-tip stuck up your nose, 200 times? I mean, all the testing, all the, all this, the starts, the stops, the season getting canceled, the fight to restart the season. You get through all those games, you survive all those games, you win the Big Ten championship, you beat Clemson, you're there at the top of the hill, you say, all right, national championship game against Alabama, and then, boom, COVID, and your season's over. And Tommy Togiai's season's over. And, they were missing a bunch of guys in that game, and he said, it was just like, I can't go out like that. That cannot be the end of my Ohio State career, is a positive COVID test. So, he's back. He is very much... this is a contract year for him too. He's someone who I think, came in, probably he was highly ranked enough that he probably had the 3-year mindset as well. Yep. It has not been a 3-year process for him. He's coming in, and this is his 4th year now. So he's, right, 4th?
Yep.
Yeah, 4th year for him now. So he's someone who, again, this is a contract year for him. He has an opportunity to, if he can stay healthy, he can put a good year together. That can really pay off. He was asked about, they could get to the quarterback and pressure the quarterback, but they didn't translate that into a lot of sacks last year. They were right at the top of the nation in terms of quarterback pressures, not anywhere close to the top of the nation in terms of sacks. And it was like, so what do you do about that? And he's just got to work harder. It's like you can look at that, and he said people talked about all sorts of other stuff, which means like the corners weren't very good, so guys are getting open pretty quick. So that's and he said you can't look at people talking about, well, there was other stuff that it wasn't your fault. He's like, I have to get better. Yeah. I have to get there faster. I have to refine my technique. I have to hand fight, get his hands away from me a little faster. I have to, when I turn the corner, I've got to get there a little quicker. No excuses. Just, it's on me to do it. Zach Harrison, this is a unit that there's a lot of potential. It didn't quite translate into sacks last season, but you can tell that is they're aware of that, and they're working very hard to rectify that.
Javante Jean-Baptiste talked a little bit about just even working on their explosion as they get to the quarterback. Just any little thing they can do. And Tom, you'll be surprised to find out that iron has been sharpening iron.
I hope not today because it's raining at Rust.
Oh, true. Well, that's why it was a short practice today.
Oh, okay. Not as short as we thought, but
sure not. But I asked him, hey, how's DeJuan Jones doing? He's like, DeJuan, he's good, and he's a bigger guy, so it makes it difficult. I'm like, how does it make it more difficult? He's like, well, he's bigger and he moves well. It's like, oh, that makes sense. That the bigger guys who can move well makes it more difficult to get around them. I was thinking maybe he would get into some technique and what he has to do. But no, he spelled it out perfectly fine. It's an acceptable answer. He's big and he's mobile, and he's bigger than most, and he's as mobile as others, and maybe more than most. So, okay, thank you for that answer. So.
Yeah, that's this is going to be one of the nation's best offensive lines. This is going to be one of the nation's best defensive lines. If you're going against this unit in practice every day, again, this goes back to game day is the easy one. Like, how can Nick Petit-Frere and DeJuan Jones possibly be prepared for Kayvon Thibodeau? It's like, well, they also get to go against 5-star defensive ends literally every day in practice. So that's probably not as much of a concern as it might be for other teams that are maybe on Oregon's schedule this year. Same for the offensive line. Like, for the defensive line, like, you're going against two guys who are uniquely talented, uniquely, 5-star guy, also guy the size of a garbage truck, who is, as nimble as like the recruiting term is dancing bear. Like, it's just, big, strong, and also really nimble and quick on his feet. Like, that's going to prepare you pretty well for whatever you're going to have to face on Saturdays or Thursday in a couple weeks.
I asked Haskell, Garrett, how Thayer Munford's doing inside. He's like, yeah, he's pretty good. So this is probably the first time you've ever really faced him, right? He's like, yeah. So he's just big, strong, as you would expect. Things are going well there. Mike Hill and Tyreke Williams, more big, strong guys, the freshmen. There's some good stuff there. Anything else from the defensive line that we have not touched on?
I'm thinking through it. I think we've kind of hit on all the high points.
Running backs tomorrow, we will get to see a little bit of practice, maybe a lot of bit of practice. We'll see what Ryan Day has to say about that on Wednesday. More practice would be my preference.
Yes. Yeah.
But we'll see. While we do have some sway, and we know he listens to the show, it might be a big ask, but we'll see. I guess that'll do it then.
That'll do it.
All right. Thank you guys for watching and listening. A reminder to check out BuckeyeScoop.com, where you'll see these videos, practice reports if we ever get to see practice, all kinds of content. Mick just threw up his Division III Ohio High School football preview. Mick Walker. Check that out. And if you're not yet a member, I suggest you become a member. The Ask the Insiders board this month has been worth the price of admission for the entire year. And the thing is, we can say that almost every month.
Yeah, you're getting your money's worth every month, this month especially, but guess what? Next month, you're probably also going to be interested in what's going on inside Ohio State football practice once the season starts.
That's true. Games start next month.
Is that a fact?
That is a fact.
Interesting.
A couple of games early September, and then a couple more in mid-September and late September.
Wow. I was so used to last year's schedule, I was thinking we had a month and a half to go. Wow, we're in a big hurry.
Yes. Thanks for bringing the show down, Tom. Talking about last year's schedule, but that'll do it. Reminder, youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop for all kinds of podcasts, videos, quips, highlights, interviews, and stuff like that. So thank you guys, and we will talk to you later.